Every soul is a candle. Every soul.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, this is Phillip Namanworth, another session of Creative Spirituality. I welcome everybody. In fact, welcoming is the main thing we do here. People should feel welcome in their own homes, with their own people, wherever they go. And someone asked me how long this class has been going on, and I sort of have an aversion to calling it a class. It sounds like, a teacher, and you sit there and you're taking notes and you can't wait till the bell rings or something. It's always been like a meeting. I may be speaking, and later, as you know, we have questions and stuff. But it's more of a gathering of the way people used to always get together to learn from each other, to talk, when conversations can be a little more serious or fun, but people engaged on a level of trust in some way that we can speak our minds and ask questions that have real meaning for us, and have that we might not speak about in general. Right now, it's interesting. The Alter Rebbe, who was the founder, the Rebbe Shmuel Zalman of the Chabad Hasidic movement, he once said to his Hasidim, a person should live with the times. He did not mean the New York Times. And his Hasidim didn't know what it meant. What do you mean, live with the times? So his son explained to them it means whatever was going on in the Torah and in the Jewish year is where you can be tuned into, because each chapter in the Torah tunes into a different part of your psychology, your philosophy, your spirituality, and everything else. And the time of year affects everything also. So it's a matter of being in tune with what's going on. Now, for humans, very often we get overwhelmed because it seems like there's too many things going on at once. So we try to prioritize and see what to handle first. And good advice from a friend of mine always is, when you're in that state, is to take a deep breath. In other words, let's slow the process down. And slowing the process down helps us to focus a little bit. We're in the 5th month of the year, and this is the month of Av. We call it Menachem Av. This is the year, this is the month that's the most difficult. We're in of the Jewish year, seemingly. And it's in the middle of a period called the 3 weeks, which sort of circumscribe low points in the calendar and in life, and times of frustrations and times of disappointments. It was the destruction of the 2 temples in Jerusalem, and the breaking of the tablets. And this period is a time for great reflection. And because it's when you're in a time of deep darkness, the light that comes after it is as strong as comes from the strength of the darkness. So say you have something you're trying to transform. It's something not working well, or it's something in your life, transform a business or something. The more energy there is in it, the more you can transform it. In fact, our scientists tell us that the strongest thing, or the most forceful thing, it seems to be out in space or in the universe, is a black hole. And if anybody's heard just a little bit about a black hole, it's so strong that no light can even get out of it. It's a tremendous source of energy. And unfortunately, sometimes when we're depressed or when we have different negative things going on in life, we feel like a little bit like that black hole. Our energy becomes, we could feel like we're imploding. It's important to remember that that's just energy. And the prophet Zechariah, he says there are four fasts in a year. There are actually five, but four fasts of the fourth month, the fifth month, the seventh month, and the 10th month, and they will be transformed. So the fourth month is the fast of when Moses broke the tablets. The fifth month is when the temples were destroyed. The seventh month was when the rest of the exiles left upon the death of the governor. And in the 10th month of Tevet, it was when the Romans first breached the temple, and the Babylonians also. So those were not um, positive experiences on the outside. And he says those times will be transformed. In other words, we're kind of fasting on, we're going to be celebrating on. So the deeper the darkness, the greater the light, which is one of the real reasons why we are well-rounded. A person will also have the ability or take the time to look at things that don't look so good in their life and explore them. One of the ways we do this is to reach out to other people or really see what our responsibility is based on what's happening in our life. Rambam rules that if there's a drought, everybody has to meet in the house of learning and discuss their behavior. He says, what are we doing to cause this drought? Now, if someone came up to you and said it's the behavior of people that causes the weather, you would think they're crazy, right? But on some level, what he's saying is we are part of this universe, and what we do counts, and it affects life. So quantum theory tells us, uh, as purported by Heisenberg, you can't tell where a particle is. You can only tell the effect of what you can see. So you can't know where it is and the speed at the same time. So you can look at a table and the molecules, the subatomic particles are moving in the table because you looked at it. This is scientific fact at this point that we affect the world around us. So if that's true, it might be a good idea to get ourselves tuned so that the effect we have is as positive as possible. So during this time, when a lot of very difficult things happen, like the destruction of the temple, it's 2,000 years later, and we're still mourning the temple. The second temple was destroyed in approximately the year 70 Common Era. So it's almost exactly, 2,000 years. And you're not even allowed to sit Shiva for more than 7 days, right? You're not allowed. If you're sitting Shiva for 10 days, they tell you get up. What are you doing? You mourn, you say Kaddish for a year. But the temple was a physicalization of a cosmic interface. Now, what's a cosmic interface? It's not a mask, but it's a means by which you have access through your own soul to the sort of the soul of the universe. We call it, some people use the word God, some people use the word Atzma or Ein Sof, something on a higher level that's above creation. We can draw that energy down into our lives, which is an amazing thing because a lot of times we're perhaps suffering from the fact that we feel stuck in some level. Now, being stuck in a level can also mean there's nothing wrong, but you've been in the same level for so long that you don't think about moving. You don't think I'm getting old. I've just been doing it this way for my whole life. I'll always do it. But you can see from people who were doing things till their last breath, they're just always moving ahead with whatever you have possible. You use whatever you have possible. You may need your energy to stay on the same level, which is fine too, but you still have to access that energy. So what are the things that bring energy? And what are the things that cut off energy? Judaism has this makes a claim that prayer itself can draw down energy from levels above our own reality. If you think of studying Torah as uh, listening to a teacher, say, it's similar. You're learning from something and you're taking it in, and wherever you're getting the information is giving it out. But when one prays, one is doing something extraordinary. And this is why prayer is so hard. It is very difficult because you have to learn to emote with yourself. You have to engage your own heart. Because if you're really praying, you want to feel something. And to draw something down, you have to feel it as well. If you're talking to someone, we often can feel whether they're sincere or not, whether you've got their attention or whether they're just giving you answers. Are they just, answering the way they always answer? Yeah, you get information, but it's different. In fact, some very fine musicians have said, if you don't love what you're playing, how can other people love it? If you're not into what you're doing, how will other people be able to join you? So it's about accepting all of the different parts of ourselves and making the music of our own lives out of every part of ourselves, what seems to be good, what seems to be difficult, and including them in a certain way. Now, this should not lead us to thinking that just because I feel a certain way or I have certain habits or I want to accomplish something, I have to act on everything just because it makes an appearance in my desire. Certain things make an appearance in your intellect. Oh, that would be a good idea to do such and such, right? Some things make an appearance in your impulse. Oh, I feel like giving that guy a real smack. Don't do it. Or wow, there's something I really would like to have another way of employing all my energies in a little bit of a different way that'll help me expand my horizons, because we're flexible human beings. We have a bottom line that helps us be flexible. It's like the farther if you're a bowstring, right? If you consider yourself a bowstring, the farther back you can pull the bowstring, what happens? The farther you pull it towards yourself, when you let go, the arrow goes further, right? So in spirituality, we say the more you draw the string, your spirituality towards you, the farther your reach out into the world becomes. This is a period when we're asked to consider our frustrations, disappointments, and all the difficult times of our life, because there's a channel open now where those things become available to you with a new consciousness that they can really be of use to you rather than things that happened to us. Many times when we experience certain things, we're very young or very vulnerable, and we experience them in one way. But when you revisit them on your own with more perception, you can see that perhaps they were really helpful to you over time. Or maybe we didn't understand them at the time. Or maybe we did, but we no longer have to carry around the weight or the pain of those experiences just because they happened. And they did happen. These things all free us. Because as we know, if the heart is directing the mind, but the mind can't have any control over the heart, one person will be in trouble, unless you're writing romantic novels. I mean, really, and many dramas of people's lives play out that way. So how do we get our intellect to interact with our emotions and with what we learn, ideas we hear that inspire us. Brian was talking about a dream he had, which is an aspiration. An aspiration is a normal thing for a person of saying, I am inspired to do something big. It's a normal thing, but how does one take it from that stage? Or how does one take it from a stage of someone telling you that you can be expansive? Yes, you can repeat the words, but how do I bring it into my normal everyday life? And that is really the question. How do I take everything I've learned and make it part of my life? I know a lot of people that go to classes and they say, "Oh, that was a wonderful class," and you say to them, "Well, what was it about?" It said, and I can't explain. You had to be there. So, which means that you really didn't absorb it yet. You absorbed the teacher's involvement in his own learning, and it's going to take a while. And this is why I encourage people take some notes. If you miss something, you can always watch it later. But if something hits you, jot it down, or after class is over, write it down and think about it. Put it in a book, discuss it with someone else. And that's how you make it yours. Because when we hear something that touches us, we go, oh, that's really cool. I like that. I'm going to use it. And as you know, we forget it right away. Yes, Brian, you got it. But you got it. I play with a guy in my band. He carried a little notebook in his back pocket, and he called it his brains. And he wrote everything down. And for years I did that, and I saved so many lyrics because I realized as soon as I said, "Oh, I'm never going to forget this idea. It's so great." As soon as I got home, I forgot it. How do we make things ours? Well, first we have to allow ourselves to experience them. Or say you're sculpting something and you say, I see this shape. I wonder if blah, blah, blah. If you don't make the drawings, if you don't start carving and find out, oh, this doesn't work, but it works here, it's all in your mind. And that's not like just being an intellectual, because intellectuals who teach at universities and stuff still have to come up with equations and things that they can uh, pass on to students to inspire them. Now, here's an interesting thing about being inspired. We're all each other's teachers in many ways. Uh, so, if something that one person, a teacher, does for a student and it inspires him, the student should say that I see how that works. I have to find a way for something to inspire me because I'm not him or her. I can take that as a jumping point. Oh, I see. That inspired the person to go to the next step. Well, what can I use to inspire me to take that next step that's been scaring me, or I was not willing to do, or I was afraid of, or I have a million excuses? I think if a person writes down a list of their excuses why they don't do things, they would be way ahead of the game. As the Rebbe in our Stiebel always says, everybody's got excuses. If you want to come, you'll come. If you don't, you don't. It's you don't want to come. And there's something to be said about that. Part of us wants to do things. Some of us just don't want to. Better we should learn to say, today I just don't feel like it. Doesn't mean you still can't move on it. If you work for someone else, Brian was saying they had to get up early and work till late. It doesn't matter how you feel today. Someone's got to go in and do it. We should treat the emotional, intellectual, and relationship parts of our lives and give it the same energies. We're supposed to be together with other people socially. We're supposed to think about others instead of ourselves all the time. Except if you're a sports fanatic, then you only think about the Phillies, right, David?
Right.
But you have to learn to think about another team somewhere. Maybe you'll learn something from it. Only kidding, but anyway. So we're in a period where there's a very dark period, but the farther down you go, the higher it should take you on the other side. Like when the Jewish people went into exile originally, we went down to Egypt because there was food there and there was a famine. And we consider that the beginning of the exile. However, it was a descent for the sake of a higher ascent, because when we came out as a people, not just tribes. We came out with 3 million people instead of 70. We came out strong. We came out with leadership. We came out with tribal stuff, and then we were led towards getting the Torah. But if you think of 210 years previous to that, all of that was growing what needed to take place for that to happen. I think in each of our lives, if we say, how did I get here? We can trace a number of steps and things that happened in our own lives that told us, that took us on this journey. Because the truth is, we're all on a journey. And that's why I don't like to call this class, because it's a journey based on Torah. It's important to know what the Torah does say and does not say. It's not a book like another book. Well, you got your way, I got my way. It's not that. You can do with it what you want, but that doesn't purport to be that way. These are words that were spoken to Moses on Mount Sinai as a spiritual blueprint for life. Now, the question comes up, if that higher reality is infinite and we're finite, how is there a communication between what's infinite and what's finite? Because if I actually allow what's infinite in, I become infinite. Similarly, but not the same as the ray of sunlight, right? We think that there are rays of sunlight, right? And there are. But when the sunlight gets close to the sun, there's no such thing as a ray of sunlight. It's all part of the sun. It's part of the thing that is emanating that energy. Our energy is connected to the source of our energy, which is the source of all existence, which is called the Ein Sof. How do we tap into that? How do we use it? How do we understand that our limits are not limitations? This 3 weeks are called the 3 weeks of Bein Betzarim, between the fences. In the book of Eicha, it's called Between the Fences. When you're stuck between fences, you feel like you can't go any further. And that's what our self-limitations kind of feel like for us. I can do this, but I can't do that. Oh, I'll never do that. I'm not talking about playing forward for the Knicks in the next 3 weeks. You're probably not going to do that. But having dreams and working towards them, or getting information. I'm a big fan of getting information. A lot of the information I get tells me that something I might have been trying would not be worth it because it was something I didn't have the equipment for or something, but it was on a list of things to explore. Now it's not. So I can focus my energy more directly in the manner of a laser rather than a light bulb. A light bulb spreads its light in like in a diffuse manner. But what does a laser do? A laser focuses all its energy in one thing. It can cut through anything because it's focused. When a person is working on something and it focuses them, they can accomplish a lot because they're using a lot of different energies, which include a lot of different talents and a lot of different abilities and frustrations and experiences in one place. There's a huge change that can come over a person because they have a place to put it. You often meet people who don't have really anything they're focusing on in life, and unless they're really into golf and they're retired, and then you have to love golf. And it focuses you. So the Torah says, I want you to understand how this world works, because I want you to know that your soul is part of the infinite. And because it is, when you were born, it's necessary that you were born, and you were born with something to do, because you weren't just, there's no haphazard. There's no, I don't know who I am and whether I deserve it, whether I should have confidence or not. We may not feel confident, but the Torah says to you, God made, mankind, B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of Hashem. We all have a divine imprint, which expresses itself in a different way in each person. But we have to be able to get in touch with that energy. So all our likes, all our quirks, all our personality traits that some people like more than others or whatever are yours. They're the way your candle burns and spreads light in this world. But to use that energy, if we consider that perhaps prayer is the way of pulling the energy into the world, how do I focus that energy into real things I'm doing? We have what's called, God gave us the very simple thing called mitzvahs. Mitzvah's not a good, it may be a good deed, but it's not what it is. It's a connection. A mitzvah, say you say a bracha over some food, means that the blessings are being drawn through that blessing that you say over eating into the food to help you develop spiritually. So that energy that was just sitting around waiting to be used, which many of us have, and we're frustrated because we don't know exactly where to put it. The Torah says you can put it everywhere in your life because you're surrounded by Torah and mitzvahs, and you're surrounded by challenges which are meant to lead you towards the place and the things that you're good at or that you need to make light in your corner of the world. It's very different from someone else's. However, one could say, well, we all pray. You pray 3 times a day. You eat kosher. You keep Shabbos. Seems like everybody's doing the same thing. And I don't get it. I don't get it. What is it? Well, nobody does the same thing in the same way. I know when my wife lights candles, she says her prayers the way she says them with her intention. She says the same bracha as everybody else, or a single man or somebody else, but she's bringing light into the house, but it's a special light based on who she is. And the only way to know if any of this has an effect on you is to try it. Look, it's like someone comes to you and they say, listen, I see how you're running your business. I think it would be easier if you did this, that, and the other thing. And you think about it and you go, nah, I don't want to try it. Or it's different if you paid the consultant. Did you ever pay a consultant for something? They come in, they say, tell me how the business runs. What's your overhead, right? How much time are you spending on important things? What's your profit margin? What's your layout? All of this. And you sort of know it by yourself, but when you see it, it's a shock. And then they say, well, you don't need this, but I'm used to that. Yeah, but you don't need it. You're running a business, are you just playing a game? Or how can you transform that thing that's not doing well into something that is doing better? And we all have this happen to us in terms of our relationships, which could always be better, and we're always work on. We have a relationship with ourselves, a relationship with others that's very important, and a relationship with God. They're all connected. In fact, say you have a problem with a friend and you somehow manage to make it better. That improves your relationship with yourself. It gives you a confidence, and it also improves your relationship with heaven, because God made us for that purpose, to find the light and find the heaven in someone else, not just ourselves. And the same thing, unfortunately, If someone's having a lot of trouble with other people, they could be having a lot of trouble with themselves too, fighting with themselves.
Yeah.
You can't have like Robert Jacobson lately has been talking about a lot of people. People say, "Well, I'm religious," and then they treat people like they're not. They go to shul, they daven, right? They do everything, but they fight with their wife all the time, or they boss their kids around. They don't think about it. Religious is what God wants you to do, not just because you do the mitzvahs. You have to have the energy focused on that vessel. If you're going to create something, you don't need inspiration exactly. As forget his name, I went to see him, famous painter. He became a cripple. David Sounders on, and I'll think of his name later. And I was at a talk that he gave, and someone asked him about inspiration. He said, "What do you mean inspiration? I get up every day and I take the paints and I go work. And when it comes, it comes." Some people say, "Well, I'm inspired. I'll do this. Oh, when I feel like it." That's not how things get done. Customers are coming every day. So, how does the infinite, David, would you mind turning off your sound? Turn off your sound. How does the infinite non-existential reality connect with us? It needs an interface. In other words, if something is infinite, how do we hold on to it? That interface is called the Torah. The Torah takes the energy of the infinite and puts it into, it says, Torah Dibur Balashon B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in the language of a person. So it puts it in language you could understand, with things that you can understand. And through having that interface, you can draw down what's above it. Say, Lefum Ben Hehe Omer, Lefum Agra Sachra. This Ben Hehe said, according to the effort is the reward. If you put in something, you can draw something down. But so what's the thing we put in? How do we put those efforts in? And the Torah lays out what's the best way to do it. And the only way to know if it's true is to try it, really. Fortunately, my teachers were examples of how those things worked in their lives. Their families were very functional in certain ways. Their warmth was amazing. Their brilliance was very humble. And they were they increased my judgment without without making me judgmental. Better we should go for justice than judging. Today, unfortunately, people call things justice, but really they're judging. Like they have an arrogance if they know what's right and what's certain. Well, it's good to have a place to get a second opinion, so to speak, or a first opinion. If a person needs a knee, has trouble with his knees or their hips, they go to a doctor, they get x-rays, right? And they say, should I go to physical therapy? But they don't go to a dentist. Or they don't say, well, I read 4 books and this is what I'm going to do, unless that's all you have available. In spirituality, it's the same thing. We should be around people who have some experience with this kind of living and who you can relate to. And that's the thing. We have to be able to relate to each other, to communicate with each other. So very interestingly enough, the 4 books of the Torah, the first 4 books, mostly say Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe. When Moses comes in the second book, God spoke to Moses, or God did this, and he said to this one. In the 5th book, it says these are the words of Moses. Vaydaber Moshe in the plains, Moses is speaking. Wait a minute, doesn't God give the Torah? Why do we need this 5th book, and why does it have to come through Moses? So it's explained that all during his career, Moses channeled the words of God like they came through him. But in this particular case, they came through him with a little piece of him in that. Why? Because who is listening to this message? In the fifth book of the Torah, the whole generation before had died out. And it was a new generation that was going into the land, which means accomplishing your life, moving into the wholesomeness of your being. Hi, Lindy, welcome. Doing the things that bring you close to reality. And the people in the desert were trained and lived a life of miracles. They saw plagues. They saw the splitting of the sea. They heard God's voice. This is not a normal way we live. So in order for us to go into the land after that generation had passed away, it had to come straight from Moses because Moses is a human being. And by him channeling it through himself means that you can channel it, what you learn, and it can be relevant in your life. Because Moses channeled the messages of eternity through into and gave them to us and explained other things and reminded us of different things on the level of us coming into the land. This was passed on to Joshua and to the men of the assembly and the prophets. And the prophets were able, with Ruach HaKodesh and the sages, to receive that message and process it in a way that made it relevant to their generation, because Moses had taken it on himself to become an interface. The interface to Moses was the Torah. The Torah is a cosmic interface. It connects us to a higher reality, but it becomes part of us. When you do something, you can go from a state of doing good to being good. It's otherwise almost like your molecules change. When your first impression of being in the world is more in line with the world, instead of everything you're doing having to be corrected, or how to correct things more quickly. No one is perfect. The idea of living a good life is that ordinary people do extraordinary things. We see this in life. We see, unfortunately, the negative, that ordinary monsters in life create havoc. The same thing is that an ordinary person can do extraordinary things through living a certain way. And the ripple effect is that everybody around you can see that, and it becomes part of them because they see it, they witness it. Otherwise, it's like, why should I bother with that? There's usually two choices. There's the right way and the easy way. Every once in a while, they're the same, but a lot of times we're just trying to avoid pain and get through the day. But what if it's to include in that God wants us to grow. It wants us to be sort of something greater. So if I come to a class like this and I've never had any experience, I go, I don't know, I'm Jewish. I never thought of being part of the Jewish people or what it means, or have a relationship with the Torah, or have a relation with God. I'm just Jewish. What do you want from me? Yeah, I eat what I want, and I do what I want, but I'm Jewish. Well, it's like not taking advantage of who you are. It's not knowing. Believe me, some of my Muslim friends, they all know the Quran. And my Catholic friends, they used to know what was in their books. But unfortunately, what happens is many Jewish people don't grow up with a certain education. Or if that education is delivered in a negative way, then you're gone. Because the main thing, as Rabbi Akiva says, to love your fellow man as yourself. If you can't find a way to love the fact that you are a certain way and that you come with this and that and the other thing and that you're in progress, how can you accept that in someone else? What's the difference if you tell somebody something? I'm not talking about a business deal here, but you do it without warmth. As my teacher, Rabbi Jacobson, always says, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's like people often have problems between them. And if it's a real friend, you want to hear a real apology, right? Because we would say, well, I would apologize this way. We always want other people to do what we would do. It takes time to realize that people are different. But if someone says, yeah, sorry about that, but you know that they're not even thinking about it, they're just going past it, it doesn't feel like, we're friends and something happened. And then at some point we get to say, I just want you to know how I feel or whatever. That coming closeness where we can be open with each other opens a deeper channel, not only between us, but between ourselves and our subconscious and our own emotions and our own truths. In other words, to look at our own excuses and see what's behind them. It's funny, in Hebrew and Yiddish, the same word, terutz. In one, it means an answer, and in the other, it means an excuse. You want a terutz, you want an answer to the question. You don't want an excuse. People say, well, why should I believe anything you're telling me? Don't. Study. Do. It says in the Psalms, King David says, Ta'amu aruki tov Hashem. Taste it and see that God is good. You have to try something for yourself. I remember even before I was studying Judaism, there were many things floating around, self-help things, and they would say, this is the way it is. And I remember trying one or two, and I said, well, that works. I tried it. It worked. I didn't accept it as a religion, but, that technique works. Instead of worrying about what happens to me all the time, worrying what's best for my friend, that's a good thing to include. It made us closer. I thought it would just, I'm always protecting myself to make sure everything's right. But when you help other people, it makes you closer. Whatever I learned from that. Or I tried something else and I would say, that doesn't work for me. Judaism says you have access to your soul, which is part of God. You're here for a purpose. You were put here in the circumstances and with your circumstances to do something that no one else on this planet can do. And it's an obligation and a responsibility. As Maimonides says, Rambam says, each person should view themselves and the world as though it's equally balanced between good and bad, good and evil, and everything you do can change the balance. Otherwise, it's like, hey, look, don't tell me what to do. I'm not, and which means I'm not connected to you. What I do doesn't affect you. This is like a person sitting in his room on a boat, drilling a hole in his floor, and people come and stop drilling holes. It's my cabin. I'll drill a hole. No. We're all going to sink. But to understand that what you do affects everything, whether you see it or not. And I've had too many, luckily, many experiences of people saying, 20 years ago, you said this, or your teacher said this and it changed my life. You don't know. On a day when a friend comes to you and you just give them warmth and feed them a little something, and you're just being a real human being, and you don't know what they're going through. 10 years later, they might come to you and say, that was the worst day in my life. I was really heading, and because you were so, I guess, picked up. But you don't always know it. It's not like a bell goes off. But the Torah says we're all connected. Now we have this thing of quantum messengering or something where they it's based on quantum mechanics that connects particles in the universe that are galaxies apart. Galaxies apart. But they're connected through this quantum magic. I don't even know what it is, but it's there. Einstein's theory of black holes was based on the fact that space is one big fabric. And what he theorized about it turned out to be true because of the way he conceptualized it. If you conceptualize yourself as alone and you don't matter and what you do doesn't matter and no one can see you, this is not healthy. Does it mean I have to give up my whole ego? What's ego? An ego says, you're here, you deserve to be here. Do what you can to protect yourself, but but spirituality tells you use that ego in the service of something greater. Don't retreat from who you are. If you're an artist, be an artist. You can be spiritual and be an artist. I heard just listening to stories about a guy who came to the Rebbe once, and Rabbi Jacobson, he asked him, I was an artist before I became religious. And then when I became religious, I stopped painting. And can you give me some topics? I'd like to go back to painting, things I could paint about. And Rabbi Jacobson's answer was, the Lubavitch Rebbe said, you should not give up your talent. A talent is a gift from God. How you use it is the thing. Don't use it to deny Judaism. Use it to what you're here for. Everything is a gift from God. And you could say, well, I don't have any special talents. I've never met someone that, if you just take a look beyond the surface of things, everybody you've ever met has some little gift, or they're nice to you, or they have something, or they care about something. Everybody has their thing. And if you don't see it, still, no one's here to prove that they have value to you. And you're not here to prove it to others. You're here to live a full life, a full potential based on the gifts you were given, and to continue growing within the context of the divine image that God gave you. And we understand what that image is only through study, because prayer brings energy, but study and actual doing creates vessels for that energy to take hold. I have an idea for a work of art. Good, that's an idea, that's an energy, right? But it's not working in my sculpting. I don't have a vessel for it yet. It's not working in my songwriting. Oh, it's working in my painting. I created the vessel. Mitzvahs create the vessel for the energies to give you the spirit to continue to live a full life. And the only proof of it is, does it work for you? And with that, I give everybody a bracha. This week is Tisha B'Av, the darkest time of the year when the temples were destroyed. The temple was a place where God's presence was felt on earth. Mamish. You didn't have to ask about it. You would feel it. Our job is to feel it in the little things we do. I want to say that this class, again, is dedicated to the yurtzeit of Avraham Abba ben Yehuda Leib, whose yurtzeit is the day after Tisha B'Av, Avi Walker, and of Pesach ben Yomen ben Keli Yitter for Shlema, and for all of the Jewish people, Achdus Yisrael, and safety and the return of the hostages, and there should be peace in the world. And Shlomo, I like that picture behind you. Who's behind you in the picture, Shlomo? Anyway, everybody should have a bracha, and thank you to Shlomo and Pace and everybody for helping doing the mechanics of getting the class online and everything. And I say good night. It's Phillip Namanworth. Thank you for tuning in to Creative Spirituality. See you again.
Every soul is a candle. Every soul is a candle of God, sent down